Hello, I'm Ron Roel, the host of 45 Forward. Now, over the last few weeks of this frigid winter, which I hope is mostly behind us, I've had a chance to read Life Lessons by Bob Violino. And I have to say, I really enjoyed the warmth of Bob's heartfelt observations about life, his life and ours. Now, I've listened to many experts about the importance of embracing gratitude and positivity as key ingredients to healthy longevity. But Bob's book, and the full title is Life Lessons, How I Learned to Embrace Gratitude, Positivity, Resilience, and Joy, struck me not only for its observations, but for its genuine authenticity. Bob has had a 40-year career as a technology and business writer. He's a professional journalist. At the same time, his stories in the latest book are deeply personal. Yes, they're positive and joyful, but he never shies away from the difficult physical and emotional challenges, like career setbacks or serious health struggles. He manages to weave together philosophical takes with ordinary human experiences. You'll see, his advice is practical, but never with a hint of preachiness. I'm sure you'll feel like I did, as if you're sitting down over a cup of coffee with an old friend, relaxed and thoughtful, as Bob shares his stories of his life. So now let's meet Bob Violino. Bob, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you. So listen, let's just sort of jump into it. I know that you started the book. You were writing, and you have a blog, and you were doing lots of different types of writing. But what spurred you to write the book? And you've written other books as well, so it wasn't like your first book.
Correct. Yeah, I had. I had been actually thinking about writing a book like this for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
The thought would come into my mind, and I'd get busy with my regular freelance work, and I'd say, oh, I'll do it some other time. And then I had some really serious health issues. Well, the kidney problems I had earlier on were serious, but in 2022, I had a cardiac arrest.
Wow.
And I was actually, what the doctor said, I was clinically dead for almost 10 minutes.
Wow. Okay.
No heart beating. So when I came to from that, they were able to revive me, obviously. And I'm one of the lucky ones because I just heard from, and I've researched this, and I just heard from an EMT I was talking to that it's pretty rare to recover from a cardiac arrest. Something like 10%,
Wow.
I believe. So, but that was a sort of a beginning of a wake-up call. In terms of thinking, well, if I want to do anything with my life, additionally to what I'm already doing, I need to do it sooner than later, not keep procrastinating.
Yeah.
Because time is of the essence. We all have a limited time on this earth, in this life. And the message was, if you really want to do something, do it. And then, so I began, and then like less than a year later, I had another serious bout health issue where I had to have my left foot amputated because of a vascular issue.
Wow.
And following that surgery, I went into heart failure and respiratory failure. So I was in the ICU for a couple of weeks. It was touch and go for a few days. And again, I was able to bounce back from that. So now I'm thinking, okay, I got to do something that I find meaningful, that I think I need to be doing. So I started writing a blog about gratitude and positivity and how important these are in our lives. And from that came the idea for this book, Life Lessons. So it's based to some degree on the blog, but I expand a lot more on anecdotes, on stories from my life. I have a lot more research, added in that I've gathered. And then once I got going, I just moved quickly. I wanted to get this done. I wanted to get it published. I opted to self-publish because I thought that the traditional publishing route, for one thing, it's very difficult to get a book traditionally published. But then there's also the time issues. It takes a while to go through the editorial process and then to get cover done. It can take years. So I wanted this done sooner than later. So I decided to self-publish it, and I'm glad I did because it's out and available and for people to get access to, and I hope those who have read it are inspired.
All right, great. Yeah, I mean, publishing certainly has changed. I mean, I've done a book that's self-published as well. It used to be a time, as you remember, like, well, self-publishing, it seems like, oh, that's sort of like the cheesy way to go. But in fact, there are lots of options left these days, for authors to really get out there and do it. And And frankly, a lot of the traditional publishing houses, you didn't really get that much support. You got some initial royalty monies against sales, but the marketing support was really not there. And so it's like, well, this gives you a lot more freedom, and production of it actually these days has gotten a lot better. So it looks professional. So you don't look like,
Oh
oh,
yeah,
this looks self-published. Yeah,
definitely.
yeah, yeah. So let's go dive into some of your life lessons. There are three or four different themes. One of them I found interesting, not surprisingly, is that some of the most difficult moments teach us the most profound lessons. So, what are a couple of some of your examples of those lessons you learned?
Sure. Well, one of the most important one, I cover this quite a bit in the book, is the importance of positivity. I know that's talked about a lot and emphasized a lot, but it really is true that our attitude, our approach to life, really is shaped by whether we choose to be positive or negative
Right.
in what happens to us, whether it's a health issue or a career issue, a job, a relationship issue, whatever it is. It's important, I think, to grasp a sense of positivity, because otherwise it's very easy to go down a rabbit hole of gloom and doom. And, it's very difficult to, it's more difficult to bounce back, I think, when you've let yourself get really depressed over time. And, I think we all need to, have a moment to mourn a loss,
Right.
whether it's, I've lost a few jobs. So, acknowledge, feel bad. This is a rough thing that's happened, and then and then start picking yourself up. Figure out where you're going to go from here.
Right.
What are you going to do next? And and I'd say another thing that's extremely important is the support of family, friends, colleagues, whoever, the healthcare staff. Nobody, I don't think anybody can get through serious crises by themselves alone. We all need help. So
Yeah.
I think to be able to reach out and ask for help when you need it, or accept it when it's offered, I think is really important. And
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's something that I've learned a lot about. I have, my book is about, for family caregivers, called The Caregiving Navigator, about how to help people take care of their older loved ones, but then also those with chronic illnesses and special needs. And of course, one of the important things is this, caregiver support. How do you get that support from people around you? And interestingly, I found out that in terms of actual longevity, when people go through troubled times, those who reach out and ask for help actually live longer than those who don't. So I think
that's
that
surprising.
yeah, that's that's so you've latched on to something that as talk about I talk about it from a caregiving perspective, but in this case, it's caring for yourself as well.
Yeah, and I think we also have to, and I've had to do this myself a number of times, acknowledge that the person who's offering help really wants to help, and maybe it'll actually benefit them more than you, because they feel this sense of needing to be helpful, and so and it's kind of it's a mutual benefit, obviously, the person who's receiving the care, but also the caregiver, somebody
Yeah.
maybe who's driving somebody to doctor's appointments, or bringing over a hot meal now and then. It gives them a sense of, I don't want to say purpose. That sounds like if they don't do this, they don't have any purpose. But it helps them feel
Yeah.
purposeful, I think. And I've experienced this, and I know, from my perspective, if I get a sense that somebody isn't just saying, oh, let me know what I can do in a general sense, or I'm going to do something, I'm going to come over and help clean the house, or I'm going to I'm going to drive it to appointments or whatever. That's more, I know they want to do it.
And yeah, and when people talk about purpose, you can be, talk about it in a, a highly aspirational sense. But the way you're describing it again is sort of daily meaningful experiences, and these small senses of purpose are still purposeful.
Yeah. So, absolutely. I think gratitude is another important lesson because, and it comes along the lines of positivity, but acknowledging, not just acknowledging, what you're grateful for, but why you're grateful for that person or that thing, whatever. And I believe, we all have things to be grateful for. So conjuring those things up, thinking about them, acknowledging them when you're in a down period or going through a tough time, I think helps with healing for sure. In fact, there've been studies about that, about the health benefits of gratitude. And there's a whole bunch of them,
Right.
and that have been reported on. So I think that's another important thing. I also think living in the moment is important. And I know mindfulness is thrown about a lot, that term, and for good reason. I think that we could all use to be more mindful. Stop and think about what we're doing in the present moment, not worry about what's going to happen tomorrow or what happened yesterday, but just kind of enjoying what's going on at the moment and appreciating it.
Yeah. Yeah. I was surprised when I do quite a bit of volunteer work for the Alzheimer's Association in terms of doing webinars for them. And one of the things that someone who wrote a book about this, about caring for Alzheimer's, that I didn't think about is that we think about, oh my God, this is such a terrible disease, and it is. I'm not again diminishing it, but what she said was that when you're with someone caring for someone with Alzheimer's, what is distinctive? One of the things is that they're living in the present. There's no future and there's no past. So live with them in the present. We're always talking about living in the present, enjoying the moment. It's like, here it is. This is the moment. Just be with them, enjoy them. Don't try to manage them. Just be with them and share what you can. Share the emotional experiences. They have emotions. They respond to things. So that's there are lots of ways to live in the moment that and enjoy those those moments. And I mentioned that look, one of the things you mentioned is not allowing setbacks to define you. I think people get stuck in that. They stay with the negative in it, and instead of saying, well, what's working for me, as opposed to letting those hardships say, well, that's who I am. That's I'm going to be held hostage to them.
Yeah, I've encountered people in my life who that's happened. They've experienced some real tragedy in their life, and that's kind of it. They sort of that's their defining moment, unfortunately, and they continue to do things, but they're always harkening back to that moment that of tragedy, and instead of trying to make a deliberate effort to get past it.
Right.
Right. There's so many things that we can do. We all have talents and abilities and that we can use, and whether it's for ourselves or for others or both. And that's a good point because I think it's very easy for some of us to fall into that trap. And there have been times in my life when I admit it was really hard to find the positivity. It's not a magic thing, and it's not, or gratitude. There's times you feel miserable, and it takes a lot of effort to get through it.
Yeah.
You have to work at it,
Yeah.
and living in the moment, you have to work at it. We have so many distractions that can get in the way of that,
Right.
you
Right.
know. So you do have to make an effort, I think, and like a lot of things in life, you have to work at it, but it's worth the effort.
Yeah. You have to work at it. You have to be intentional. Exactly.
Yeah.
Now, some of the things that you talked about, setbacks too, I think turned into positivity, but you have to work at it. Was, as you mentioned to me, that there were times in your life when you've lost jobs, and I know that it's a hard thing. It's a hard thing. I don't want to say it's harder for men than women, but I think it's hard for everyone. But we put so much into our identity and our jobs, and when we lose them, it's tough. And so, but you've had a couple experiences, but you've managed to turn them into something else.
Yeah. I think the one when I got laid off in 2002
Mm-hmm.
from a company I'd been working at for a long time, a great company. It was called CMP. It no longer exists. But I met my wife, Renee, at the company. We both
Mm-hmm.
worked there. It was a great place to work, and I thought I had a job there for life as long as
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to. They had these layoffs because of the downturn in the economy and the publishing industry.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, what the heck am I going to do now? I mean, I forget how old I was. Well, yeah, I don't remember how old I was, but I'm thinking we still have a mortgage to pay off
Yeah.
and tuitions and and not to and our regular bills. How are we going to manage? And so I started freelancing, and it started out really slow at first, and I continued. I kept pounding the pavement, so to speak, and ended up building a decent clientele.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are, 20 plus years later, and I'm still doing it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I have to say, it's it was a great decision because I've been able to be my own boss, kind of.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to pick the topics I want to write about for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
I've been able to learn a lot about technology that I might not ever have been able to do had I stayed with the company. Um, gotten to meet a lot of people, either virtually or in person, in the industry, and so it's turned out very well.
Yeah.
So it really isn't easy sometimes when you really are attached to the company you're working for, your coworkers, and not everybody can freelance. I understand that,
Mm-hmm.
but there's other opportunities out there,
Right.
and
Right.
you just have to be able to look to find them.
Yeah. I'm reminded of that. I guess it was a Winston Churchill, quote about never let a good crisis go to waste. you know.
Yeah, he has some great quotes, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that as I'm listening to you, I've been not the same experiences, but similar job experiences, and I think sometimes you say, well, how do you break free from this depression or feeling of negative thoughts, and sometimes it seemed to me that you don't always have to have a specific plan. You just need to move. Say, well, I'm just going to start moving one step
Yeah,
ahead of a time, and then as you watch your movements and start putting together your own patterns, like, wait a minute, so there's something else going on here. I could not have predicted it, but it's happening, and just sort of follow your instincts and keep doing it.
yeah, it's true. I think action is a good thing. Like I said earlier, I think we all need to maybe mourn the loss or whatever.
Right.
Acknowledge that we feel sad or we feel angry or we feel frustrated, whatever, and then make a conscious effort, no matter what it is. I think you can volunteer. I remember volunteering during one of my times off of
Mm-hmm.
work, and it really made me feel better. It felt, for one thing, I was not moping in the house. I was out and about,
Mm-hmm.
and I was, meeting people. I remember I helped my wife. She was involved with Meals on Wheels, and
Mm-hmm.
she was busy doing something, and I took over for a while,
Mm-hmm.
for a brief time, and it was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the most fulfilling things I've done, and something like that, or doing something maybe that you always thought about doing, like
Mm-hmm.
creating something, painting, or you know, writing a book, or going mountain climbing, whatever it is that
Mm-hmm.
you feel like doing, and you have the opportunity perhaps because
Right.
you're out of work. You still have to obviously look for employment, but
Right.
do
Yeah.
something.
Yeah. I know you have a number of hobbies, but any of them picked up as a result of this, like your painting or your travel or nature?
Yeah, I think. Well, I started. Well, I mentioned like volunteer work, but
Mm-hmm.
also, yes, my first book, which was called New Life. I began writing at that same period when I lost a job at CMP.
Okay.
So while I was freelancing, I also started this book, which I might otherwise never have done
Mm-hmm.
because I was so busy with work, with full time work. So that was very well worth it, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we did things like go to local trails. Long Island, where we live, has an abundance of parks and
Mm-hmm.
trails and preserves, beautiful places to visit. And I know we did a lot of that during COVID too.
Right.
But that's a great thing to do if you have the time to do it. And when you're out of work, that's a good time to get some fresh air, get in the outdoors, take pictures. I like
Mm-hmm.
photography. I do a lot of that too. So, and that makes me think about something else. Is do stuff you like, you
Mm-hmm.
enjoy,
Right.
because
Right.
that's part of the, that's one of the upsides of
Right.
getting laid off is you can maybe have more time to do stuff that you enjoy doing.
Yeah. 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 When I talk to people about what things sustain you as you get older, one of them is getting exercise. That's important. But one of the things people say is like, yeah, it's important, but do something you like.
Yeah,
Don't do exercise you don't want to do, because
yeah,
if you do something you like, you probably keep doing it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Walking is one of the things I really enjoy doing.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I did probably do more of that when I was out of work
Mm-hmm.
because I had more time.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not like heavy speed walking
Right.
or jogging or sprinting, nothing like that. I walk, just casual walk
Yeah.
with my wife. So that was always fun to do.
Yeah. I think that walking is something that I know in ancient cultures that there's a whole philosophical aspect to walking, but I think that there are times when I don't have a car or whatever, and it's just like I can walk into town where I am, and I walk my dog, and so when you do that, there are just things you notice that you don't notice otherwise, so it basically helps you uncover these little experiences that you're like, oh, well, I never saw that before.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
a really good point. Just observing. Yeah,
yeah,
that's and again part of the mindfulness. You're walking down a trail
yeah.
and you see some a bird or something. There's a park near us here called Brady Park, and they have
Hmm.
owls that nest,
Oh,
and we've gotten to see them. Right in the trees, right not far from the path. It's roped off to protect them, but to see the mother owl and the baby owls,
wow.
yeah, I mean, it's quite an experience, in not at some zoo, but in their home habitat.
Hmm.
We also there's bald eagles that nest in a local park, and we've been able to take in beautiful scenery that we may have otherwise not noticed. And I try to do this really as much as I can, especially
Hmm.
when I'm outside. I look at the fall colors
Hmm.
here in the Northeast. It's absolutely gorgeous,
Hmm. Hmm.
and I get the sense that some people stop kind of noticing it after a little
Yeah,
while, but
yeah,
until practically the last leaf falls.
yeah,
So
yeah.
that's a great point about
Yeah,
noticing things.
yeah. I think that part of me is like, slow down, slow,
Yeah,
just slow down. I mean,
exactly. Yeah.
I feel like we're moving too fast, and there even things like as we get older, and this is my issue too. You're not quite as stable as you were. You're okay, but not much is I find improved by going too fast.
No.
Walking, driving, living. It's just like just slow down and appreciate life and notice it, and I think you will discover more positive aspects of life. But
Oh,
it takes a little bit more doing, because I think that, as you know, when both of us have been in journalism for a while, it's just a natural propensity to focus on the negative. Things happen, and crashes, and crisis, and it takes some intentionality to find the positive aspects of
yeah.
life. But you can find them if you slow down and look.
Yeah, remember that? I don't know if you've heard that expression. I'm sure you have. If it bleeds, it leads
Yeah, sure.
in
Yeah,
journalism. But
yeah,
yeah, looking for the positive and being intentional
yeah.
can only lead to, I think, positive, good things. And
Yeah, and I think you talk about too. You talk about creating a ripple effect of positivity. Talk about that a little bit. Have you noticed that in your life?
sure, yeah, that's a term I hadn't really heard of much until fairly recently. And
Hmm.
basically, it's like when you throw up a rock into a pond, you see
Mm-hmm.
the ripples going out
Right.
farther and farther and bigger. And I think that can happen with our behavior, what we
Mm-hmm.
do. Let's say you go into work and somebody is off to a rough start in their morning, whatever. Maybe the boss just, you know, complains to them about something. And you say, you compliment them about something. Gee,
Mm-hmm.
that's a great document you put together, or that presentation you made the other day was terrific. Just or even smiling, or holding a
Mm-hmm.
door for somebody can have an impact on that person. And maybe that person cheers up a little bit and then helps somebody else. And then that
Mm-hmm.
person helps them, and on and on. That's a really simple example, but there certainly can be negative ripple effects like
Yeah.
wars or some decision made by a politician that has affects millions of people, and can bring the economy down. But in our lives, much more simple examples like that, where you can just paying somebody a compliment or doing some favor for somebody, they can then pay forward, which is
Right.
and then that can just continue,
Mm-hmm.
hopefully.
Right.
And we're all capable of doing this, having a ripple effect.
Yeah.
The thing
Yeah.
is we don't always know it.
Right.
When I started the blog, I was a little discouraged. I was saying, well, I'm not getting comments, as many comments back as I'd like, or,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody said, you have no idea how many people are reading the blog, no matter what and I have officially like 2,000 subscribers, I think,
Huh.
but I don't know how many of them actually read it.
Mm-hmm.
And somebody said, but there might be people outside of that group that are
Right.
reading it. They just happen to see it.
Right.
So we can't know what impact we're having on others.
Right.
We
Right.
can't know the complete impact of what we're
Yeah.
what we're having.
Yeah. Yeah. You could always ask for comments and feedback, but people are busy, but I
They're
think that
busy.
it does come back to you in surprising ways, where someone will mention like, "Oh, you read that? Interesting.
Yeah,
Okay, great, great.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now, having said that, I've gotten many wonderful comments about
Mm-hmm.
the blog and the book, and I appreciate every single one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So many people have said, like with the book, oh, this is really my one a woman I know from work. She said her dad was very sick,
Mm-hmm.
uh, terminally ill, and she was reading the book, and she said, "It's helped me get through this." And her
Mm-hmm.
dad unfortunately passed away, and she said, afterwards, it's continuing to help me get through this. And
Mm-hmm.
somebody else was trying to make a career decision, and said one of the posts I wrote helped her make that decision
Yeah. Yeah.
for the better. So feedback like that is just wonderful.
Right. 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 So I wanted to just close with what you close with in your book, which is about sort of the lessons learned from your kidney transplant. Which so this is the 30th anniversary of that transplant, and certainly a difficult health situation. But just talk about how you basically experienced it and learned from it, and what your take was on the outcome.
Sure. Well, I saved what I think it was the best for last.
Mm-hmm.
That's why
Right.
it's the last chapter.
Right.
But it's a remarkable story because I have kidney disease,
Mm-hmm.
and I was on dialysis for a number of years, and that began to work less and less effectively. So my doctor said, "You need to get a transplant." So I got on a list, and my turn came up. I went up to Boston to a kidney became available, and I went up to Boston to get the transplant, and it clotted off immediately. Unfortunately, I have a clotting issue,
Mm-hmm.
and it clotted the transplant off, and so it didn't work. I had to go back on dialysis. And a little less than a year later, I was getting sicker and sicker, and several people in my family had volunteered, but for one reason or another, they couldn't donate. So my wife Renee said, "Well, I want to donate. I want to be tested as a donor." And my first reaction was, "Well, no, thanks. That's really really generous, but I'd rather you not.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want to take the risk."
Right.
And she insisted, and she got tested. And sure enough, we were a really good match. We were an equal match to what siblings would be.
Wow.
So that's pretty amazing. It doesn't usually work that way, but it did. And so this made me think, oh well, maybe there's something to this. Maybe I should be more think about it more. And I
Mm-hmm.
did. And Renee was at this point she was all set to go. Um, and we talked to the transplant coordinators, and
Mm-hmm.
they said, well, the date we have coming up, the first good available date for you is October 25th. And that happens to be our wedding anniversary date. So when we
Mm.
both heard this, we looked at each other and said, wow. I mean, now this felt like it was meant to be
Right.
to me. And
Mm-hmm.
so after that, we were ready to go. So yeah, the transplant, thank God, was successful
Mm-hmm.
and on our anniversary, and we actually got a lot of media attention for it,
Mm-hmm.
which I was thrilled about, but not because of us and because of my ego, but because it was spreading the word about organ donation.
Right.
It
Right.
was a positive story, and spouses, friends,
Mm-hmm.
strangers can even be good matches. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a good thing. But um, it was completely selfless on Renee's part. Although she says she it wasn't because she wanted me to be around. Our son was
Right.
8 years old at that time. She wanted him to not lose his dad.
Right. Right.
She didn't want to lose her husband, and so she thinks of it as she had ulterior motives, but it was a
Right.
wonderful gesture, and I have such admiration and respect for any organ donors.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just such an incredible act of generosity and selflessness.
Right.
And and that goes for living donors as
Mm-hmm.
well as those who sign the organ donor
Mm-hmm.
cards and are donate after they're deceased. But either way, it's a tremendous gift.
Right.
So yeah, and then that led me to think of, well, why not just do a chapter on the idea of love and what it means and this kind of selfless love, agape love is you don't have any, you do it because just to be, because it's another person is in need,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it not for any kind of payback even recognition.
Mm-hmm.
You're doing it because it's the right thing to do.
Right. Right.
It can be some of the things I mentioned earlier, like charitable acts, working in a soup kitchen, or delivering meals to people's homes, or taking them to doctor's appointments, just hanging out with somebody who lives by themselves,
Right.
for a while. Anything really can be an act of love. So
Yeah. I think what you're saying too. It's an interesting notion of it. It's selfless, but it's self-full. It's So you were mentioning before about when you the giver also receives, in the act of giving, and so it's selfless in one sense, but it's also recognizing that I'm thinking about. I think there's this image that I've seen before that of caregivers where I think it's a Picasso print of a bouquet, and somebody is giving the bouquet and someone's receiving it, but you don't know which is which. It's both giving and receiving. And I think that image of this agape love is kind of, says it, it's an integral process of giving and receiving. So,
that's a great way to put it. Yeah,
yeah,
that's exactly what it is.
yeah. So,
And we need a lot more of that.
well, what the world needs that now is agape love, or
Yeah.
well, thanks, Bob, for a really wonderful conversation. Before we leave, I just want to let people know. I guess they could get your book on Amazon, but probably from your website and other places. And where can they read your blog?
Yeah, the blog is
Mm-hmm.
inspirations-blog.com.
Okay.
So inspirations and then the dash, not the word hyphen, but the dash
Mm-hmm.
blog.com. And that from there you can get to my book page.
Mm-hmm.
And then there are links to both Amazon and Barnes and Noble
Okay.
websites from that page, or just go directly on Amazon and search for my name or Life Lessons.
Right.
And if anybody, for whatever reason, wants to reach me, it's email is the best way, bviolino@optonline.net,
Okay.
bviolino@optonline.net.
Great. Okay.
And I'd be happy to hear from anybody, feedback about the blog, the book, or just if anybody wants to chat,
Great.
I'm available.
Okay. Okay. Well, thanks again, and I wish you all the best for the book. And I know you have other books too, so sales on all the books.
Thanks so much for having me, Ron. I really appreciate it.
Quite welcome. Okay. Thanks, Bob.
Take care.
Take care.